Hello friends, Melly Ponthadith here, CEO of the SOAR Community Network and co-founder of the SOAR Community Nebula. The goal this year for us is to interview 1,000 champions of change and community builders. And today I'm delighted to introduce you to Etoy Ridgnal. Thank you so much, Etoy, for being a part of this initiative with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we met several years ago through Values Partnership, and I just had such a great connection with you and the type of soul that you are and how much you care about grassroots initiatives, bringing voice to communities that may not necessarily have a large microphone initially. So I thank you for that. What I'd love for you to do is introduce yourself to our audience and share with them the work that you're currently doing in the world.
So my name is Etoy Ridgnal, and I'm the president of Community Advocacy Partners. CAP is a social impact agency that works cross-sector within entertainment, music, government, civic organizations, corporations, to basically create social impact campaigns and initiatives that are, meant to provide either a vehicle or message to share out into the world, or that are meant to educate, engage, and activate and inspire some type of action on the part of people. So we have, kind of three components to our work. We work in film and television. We create social action marketing campaigns around films and television. It's how you and I met, working on the Oprah Belief series. We've also developed campaigns around the film CONCUSSION, as well as Belial, which was the first, animation, Middle Eastern animation that came out just last year, to SELMA. So very diverse. We focus on film, television shows that are message-driven. And are designed to reach a certain set of stakeholders, people who are interested in whatever the message or theme of that particular film may be. So we connect audiences to the films. Secondly, we create social impact initiatives and strategies and advise high net worth individuals who are interested in deepening and broadening their impact across the world via whatever particular verticals they choose to and whatever moves them deeply. And third, we actually curate art events that have a social action theme, so art, music, fashion. We work with either civic organizations, or we may work with a fashion brand, for example, or a music company to create a art activation that is meant to be thought-provoking, to inspire conversation, to deepen, a really strong interest in a particular subject matter. So, for example, our agency is co-producing Track the Vote, which is a civic engagement initiative that's designed to register over 2.5 million people of color, young people of color, to vote over the next 2 years. And we're curating a art activation at Pharrell's Something in the Water Festival that's happening at the end of April in Virginia Beach. So our work is varied. We pretty much play in the space of civic engagement, nonprofit, entertainment, music, art, the intersection of art and social impact, as people would say. And honestly, this grew out of a 20-year career as, initially a community organizer, moving on to, leading various initiatives around healthcare, education, just fairness, the workplace, schools, et cetera, for the last 20 years. So this work has become an intersection of two things I love, which are art and media, and social impact, and being able to find ways to ensure that art can be impactful.
That's fantastic. Wow, 20 plus years of
Yes.
building. That's incredible. Wow.
Thank you.
When you think about your life experiences, can you share some anecdotes or tap into maybe one or two experiences where a conscious, mindful leader, mentor, someone who
Mhm.
shows you love and empathy and compassion and really help to change your life's path or your way
Yeah.
of thinking in a profound way?
I've had many in my life. I would say two of the most profound were early childhood and then later young adulthood. First being my grandmother, Etoy Ridgnal, who actually, I used to tell people was my step grandmother. She married my grandfather, but she, pretty much adopted me, her and my grandfather at 9. When I'd been kind of cycling through the foster system, my mom had a lot of issues and wasn't able to, really take care of me. And my grandmother was really just this amazing, amazing force. She's just this powerful truth teller, warrior woman who honestly is, known within the family of being the person who's going to be honest with you, who's going to keep it real with you, going to be authentic with you, but is going to love on you so hard. And, is so generous and compassionate, but accountable, and so very, very, very early on, I had this powerhouse example of what it looked like to love people very, very, very deeply and to be there for them and to, you know, open yourself, right? And often your home as a place of refuge and a place of healing and support, but with strong accountability. And that was the thing I loved about my grandmother. She just was like, I will give you the world, but you're going to also do your work. And so before I even, understood deeper spiritual practice, because we weren't overly religious growing up, I felt like I was experiencing spirituality in practice, right? I had relatives who were far more religious and went to church every Sunday. And, they were like, walking a specific path that, read as spiritual. My grandmother was none of that. She did none of that. She had none of the trappings of traditional religion, but she was the most spiritual, is the most spiritual person. She's 86 years old, thank God, that I know, right? Because she lives it. She was living, breathing Christ-like love. She was agape love. She is still, right? And so I think she really set the tone for me. I've always been a pretty loving and open person, but she definitely instilled a strength in me, a strong will, a sense of independence, a belief that I could do anything and that there were no barriers on me. And, growing up south side of Chicago, 9 years old, I felt limitless because of my grandmother, right? I didn't feel like I was held back by anything in my life. So she was the first. And then I think the second was my best friend of 23 years who recently passed away last year. His name was Stan Maurice Hall. And he, again, very similar to her, we met when I was 19 years old, I believe. Still like sophomore in college, I believe. And he just became this powerful force for unconditional love. Like he, like my grandmother, was that same person. He was a teacher and educator for years. He loved kids. He served the community, served the kids in DC, in New York, till his death. And he would open his home to anyone. He would open, if he had, a dime, you had a dime. He was just that type of person where he mirrored that true unconditional agape love. And what it meant to really be support for people and to really be there for people in a meaningful way, but also accountability. And I think for me, that was a powerful lesson because I think there was a part of me earlier in my life, and people who knew me in my younger days would probably agree with this, but there was a part of me that although I was very deeply loving, open, and giving to people, I also didn't have good boundaries. And I found myself getting taken advantage of in scenarios where I would give everything, right, without also giving to myself. And so I think the power that people like my grandmother, people like Sam really brought into my life, and what I think has really crystallized in me now at 44 years old is the balance, right? That balance of giving to yourself as much as you're giving to others, of loving yourself as much as you're loving others, but also holding yourself and holding others accountable and letting them do their own work, right? And I think that was a lesson that I really needed to learn in my life, and it took me a while to get there. I think I'm firmly there now. But I feel like the lesson that I learned from those two relationships really shaped me, and it shapes everything I do, and it shapes how I interact with people. It shapes how I love. It shapes how I work. It shapes my relationship with my family, my friends. It's just, it's integrated, into how I live my life.
Well, it's so powerful to watch the mirroring effect happen, since you described the two most powerful, empowering people in your life, and just having experienced you through the belief experience, through the Oprah Winfrey Network experience, is how much heart you put into it, but also how organized you were and how you were always on top of us, like, no, let's get this done. Look, this should not be an hour call, come on, let's do it. And it was really amazing, because we need that. We, as dreamers, as light bearers, as people who want to create change in the world, we need to systematize these values. We need to be able to actively participate in the change from a pragmatic, daily level, or it won't get done. The work is too big, right? It's too big. The nebulous cloud, and then all of a sudden it's like it just becomes an idea without someone or systems or accountability to say, yes, we want to get there, but we have the tools that we have today. We only have these. So I just was trying to hold my smile, because I'm like, yep, they showed up.
Yes. And it's funny because it took me a long time to get there, right? And I think I love the way you say that. It's the intersection of love and heart and accountability and structure, right? And I really had to learn how to get there. And now everything I do, and that's, part of the feedback I get from people who work with me or any clients is, everything I do, my heart is in it. Like, that's my baby, and I'm treating it as I would my child, right? And giving it that level of love and attention and care and concern, which is why the pragmatism is important, which is why the structure is important, which is why the accountability is important. But also because I'm at a stage in my life where I don't want to do things that I don't feel good about and that are aligned with who I am on, in a much deeper way. And so I try to keep bringing that accountability for myself and for others, but also that love and that compassion, which is, it's easy to lose that in the work, right?
It is. And we're surrounded by all different types of characters who have, we all have our own agendas. They could be good agendas. They could be not so great agendas. It's just where we are spiritually on our path. It's where, how aligned we are to our soul's purpose with actively participating in this thing called life. It's a lot of areas there. So which kind of feeds into my next question, Etoy, is when you've experienced, because you have experienced and worked with a lot of change agents, community builders, champions, activists, fill in the blank, people who are really trying to create some positive ripple effects in our society. What are some of the character traits and attributes that are consistent among these types of workers, these types of community builders?
I think the most effective leaders are folks who are leading from love, first of all. Like you said, I think that there are multiple reasons why people do the work that they do. Some of them are coming from a place of that agape love where you're looking to give to the world and serve. You're looking to serve. Sometimes it's not always coming from that place. And sometimes people aren't even clear that it's not coming from that place, even though they use the language of love. And so I think the most inspiring people to me, and, I definitely think of some of probably one of the most formidable people in my early career. I was a union organizer working for the AFL-CIO, and my first supervisor at the time, Andrea Staples, she was a 20-year healthcare worker, been doing this work for years. And this woman was power personified, wasn't scared of anybody, straight up warrior, would take anybody and anything head on. But her conviction and commitment and passion and love for the work was what was always front and center. And the good thing about her example was seeing someone like this, you never doubted her motive. You were never unclear, unsure where she was coming from. And so you didn't mind following somebody like that because you knew where their compass was. And she was very clear, if this isn't where your compass is, this isn't the right space for you. And so, I feel like I've been blessed throughout my career to actually meet mentors like that. I've also had the opposite, but to meet people who just first and foremost demonstrate, if you don't love this, if you're not passionate, if you don't believe in it, you shouldn't be here. And I think sometimes to my detriment, that's been my own motto, even within my own business and the way that I operate with, the partners I work with or the staff that I may bring on. Like, if you don't want to do this, whatever the this is for you, then you shouldn't be here, right? Like, I'm 100% about commitment, like total and complete commitment. So I think clarity of vision, clear about what your passion is, clear about why you're there, and clear about whether or not this is the right vehicle for you. Because I've seen people who maybe aren't as clear about their vision and where they should be at this point in their lives, and they take on jobs or titles or roles because they think that's the path, and then they stay stuck in it, right? When they realize this isn't really it, but I'm afraid to shift, right? And so, I mentor a lot of like young professional, up and coming professionals or entrepreneurs who are developing their own businesses. And that I always tell people, start from that. Get clear on your why, right? Get clear on why you're doing this. Get clear on what it is you're seeking to do and lead from that. If you lead from that, everything else comes to be. Like, everything else unfolds. And I'm like, anyone knows me, I preach that religiously. And so I think that's super important. You got to understand why you're there, right? And you got to make sure that it's coming from a place of true alignment with what you're called to do. And then if you're going to be there like 1,000%, right? And make sure you're showing up and leading the way and, just really committed to what you're doing.
And you touched upon the next question with your mentorship. The next question is, what causes do you care about, and how are you using your own personal gifts, God-given gifts, your talents and your life lessons to support the community or the movement or causes that most resonate with your heart?
Well, I would say in the broadest possible sense, since I was very young, I've always been clear that I wanted to help the world, and specifically individual people, really get and understand their own power. Like, really get just how powerful you are as an individual, as a light, as a source, and then use that in service to the world. And so, starting from that simple statement at 9 years old, everything I've done, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously even, has always circled in that pool, right? I mean, I went into college planning to be a psych major. I was planning on becoming a therapist, which, people who know me, again, don't find that strange. But that was my intent. I saw that as my way to help heal, help people connect to themselves and understand who they were. And I got into college and got completely activated by the injustices that I'd previously been, kind of really just not aware of, whether it was racism, classism, gender discrimination. I just got activated. Went to Scripps College. Claremont, probably one of the best places for me at that time. And the level of just exposure to people from different backgrounds, environments, it really helped me start thinking much more deeply about the world. And before you know it, I was a union organizer, and, moving through union communities, and then eventually, moving to a place where I'm, have my own firm and I'm basically advancing social impact. So I would say being able to help people tap into their own individual power, and that has multiple verticals to it. Sometimes it is mental, emotional, spiritual. Sometimes it's professional clarity, it's financial clarity, it's understanding, your deeper goals for your practical life. Sometimes it's helping you unpack, what your spiritual gifts may be. And what's funny is I found that holding that as my why has led me to the job, the careers, the clients, the partnerships, the relationships that I needed in order to be able to activate that. And none of it was planned. Like I tell people all the time, I could not have written this story, right? My life story. I couldn't have written it the way that it has unfolded, but it all has just come from a deep place of wanting to help people tap into their own power so that we as a world could light up and activate and step into, you know, this true light energy, to be honest.
You know, Etoy, it's so funny. I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about all the times when I wasn't in alignment and still recalibrating every day, right? Because it's not like you just stay in alignment. Life comes at us and we've got to do some changes, some you know, dodge here and there every once in a while, but just calibrating and recalibrating over time. When things are in alignment, whether it's for a long term or a short term, it is true. Everything around us starts to just come together, and all of a sudden, we don't know how we got this email in our inbox that said, "Hey, you know, values partnership, and this lady, her name is Etoy, fascinating name, is interested in looking for some community builders in DC." Right? We just don't know. It's when we start to move to our desires of being a community builder or stepping into something that's very uncomfortable, graduating from what your community of family and friends expect you to be and become the woman that you're meant to be. All of a sudden, when you make that courageous decision, it's not comfortable. Not everybody really allows you to graduate in their minds, right? From of who you were into what you're becoming. But when you do, these miracles start to happen. And so I just need to reiterate that because it's so true that once we can find that peace inside of ourselves, it's not even peace, it's an inner knowing that I'm on track. Something feels right. And you might not have words for it. It just feels right. That's when all of a sudden, when people talk about magic, it's not magic. It's just that it feels magical.
Yes, that's right. No, that's 100% right.
Yes. Okay. So the next question is very important because I love philosophies. I love quotes. It empowers me. When you have difficult times or challenging times, is there a quote or scripture or philosophy or motto or mantra that you tap into to continue forward?
I think there's two. I think, again, from a young age, to thine own self be true. Right, which definitely aligns with my broader philosophy, right, is the more you know yourself and know your power, the more you feel comfortable being true to yourself. And I think that's always my guiding force. It's like if I'm feeling ungrounded or if I'm feeling unbalanced or find myself getting too off kilter, I come back to that. Am I being true to myself? Right? Am I actually being true to myself? And then I think the second one is the serenity prayer, right? Grant me, you know, the power to accept things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that last line, especially the wisdom, discernment, that is probably one of the most powerful gifts that you can have, right? And then, of course, the courage to act on that discernment, because sometimes we discern and we ignore. It's like, oh, I know I should do that, but I'm going to do it anyway. So
that's where the accountability comes in again.
Yes. And not being afraid to be accountable, to yourself.
Fantastic. Okay, one last question. What does a better world look like through your eyes?
I'm going to sound like a broken record, but again, this just, you know, speaks to my tunnel vision personality, a world in which we're all doing all the things we just discussed. Being clear about who we are, being clear about our power to create our reality, being accountable to it and acting on it. That's it. To thine own self be true. A world where we are truly operating from that place as individuals. I can't even imagine what the collective would look like, right? To literally have all of these 7 million beings that are like activated 100%.
I can't even imagine it. I can't wait for that day, but I can't even imagine
it. I'm hopeful.
Yes, I'm hopeful too. We have to be, gotta be optimistic. So thank you so very much, Etoy, for this opportunity. share your insights. How can people get in touch with you, learn more about your company, learn more about your mentorship, and just reach out and ask questions?
Yeah, so on Twitter or Instagram at ERIDGNAL. And my website is www.community, COMMUNITAPYAT.com. CommunityaP.com. I can't even spell. But yes, those would be the best ways.
That's perfect. Again, thank you for being a part of our global initiative as we travel the globe to highlight these extraordinary souls. We really appreciate you and appreciate you for bringing us into awareness of causes, of initiatives and experiences that really are reshaping our society, and to be a small part of that and to have you in our community as a catalyst, we're so grateful for that. So thank you for the great work.
I'm happy to be here. All right, talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. For those that are watching, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate you following us. Please remember to nominate yourself and those in your community who are creating positive ripple effects. Go to nebula.soarcommunitynetwork.com. Thank you.